1.
Hey guys, David Swor here with DJ Cox. We're back again for another episode of Frenemies, and this time we are going to do the Detroit Tigers. DJ, you're up there in southern Canada. Tell us a little bit about the 2019 Detroit Tigers.
Do I really have to? Wow.
But the trivia question is, can you name anybody on the 2019 Detroit Tigers? That's the trivia question.
This is gonna be a rough one. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have some fun here talking Tigers baseball. Man, did they have a rough year. This was the worst team in baseball last year with a 47 and 114 loss season. Ouch. Man, is that rough. That is a 292 winning percentage, David. 292. That is terrible. And there isn't really much good to say about this team from last year. I looked at their stats from last year. They probably used 100 guys in their batting rotation. I'm not really sure what they were trying to do, what their plan was with all that. I think a lot of that was just try to find a few guys who maybe can stick for the future, which makes a little bit of sense from that standpoint. But this team, like I said, they really, really struggled. I don't know how they didn't get kicked out of the league for having a year like that. I'm not sure do you know what the record, David, can you pull up the record for the most losses in a single season real quick for me as I ramble on about the 2019 recap here? Because I wonder how close, I was thinking about this, I wonder how close they were to breaking the record with 114 losses last year. They had 15 to 16 guys who got 200 or more plate appearances last year.
1962 Mets.
1962 Mets.
120 losses.
120 is the number. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So they were really close to being the worst team of all time.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, kind of veering off a little bit. So Ron Gardenhire is their manager, who I've always considered pretty good baseball man. But Ron Gardenhire leaves the Twins, and they kind of march on. Tell me what's your thoughts on Ron Gardenhire?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like to talk a little Gardy, man. I love Ron Gardenhire, kind of like you do. He did a really good job with the Twins. He's in a really bad spot with the Tigers. I do like Ron Gardenhire as a manager, but I think it's very interesting, like you said, that he left and the Twins took off again, and they have done an amazing job in the last few years up there in the AL Central. There's got to be something to that. There really does. And I don't know if I necessarily throw too much of it on Gardenhire, but you kind of have to when he leaves and they have more success than when he's there. You got to kind of look at that from that perspective as well. So always been a Gardy fan. I thought he did a really good job with the Twins, but like you said, man, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I was looking back at the 2019 Tigers, and the sad thing is they had some interesting pitching prospects, but they almost all got hurt. Michael Fulmer came over, in the trade from the Mets, had a great season the previous year, went down before the season started. Spencer Turnbull was there all year, but didn't really have a great year. And a lot of that, you got to think he probably checked out. I mean, when you're on a almost 120 loss team, at some point you kind of got to check out. Your competitive spirit's got to go away. Daniel Norris, interesting. Didn't really have a great year. And so, it'll be interesting to see if those guys bounce back. I'm not 100% sure if Fulmer is going to be back this year. Another guy I forgot to mention was Matt Boyd. It sounds like they should have traded him when they had the chance. They were asking the moon for him, and rightfully so. He had a good year the year before, but looked pretty average last year. So it looks like the injuries just piled up, and then big time lack of talent on top of it. So I think as a team they only hit 240 last year. Yeah, really terrible.
So some of these podcasts that I've listened to on the Tigers, they can only last 18 minutes on the Tigers. We're going to give you Tigers fans 45 minutes to an hour of Tigers talk here. So come on, Tigers fans, subscribe, check us out. We're giving you guys some love tonight. So who in the world would want to talk about the Tigers for 45 minutes to an hour but us two? So come on, guys.
Right.
Here we go. No, I'm going to keep talking 2019 here. David Miguel Cabrera had 549 plate appearances last year.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And for a guy getting up there in age, he by far led the team that had revolving doors at every other position. He was the one guy that was the main steady player there with them. He was the DH, and he was the only DH they used, which rightfully so for him. He led the team with home runs and 12, 59 ribbies, 282 average, and a 346.
Wait. Did you say he led the team in home runs with 12?
12.
Oh my gosh. I did not know that. Wow.
Top home run hitter on their team last year.
Unreal. That is unreal.
Pretty bad. They traded Nick Castellanos to the Cubs, which that was just a bad decision by the Tigers. Nick Castellanos is an absolute stud. Another guy that went to the Reds to load their team up. This was kind of a guy that I thought that they could have kept around. To be honest with you, the Cubs didn't really give up much to get him, which was surprising to me. I thought that the Tigers could have got a lot more than they did for him. Matt Boyd, like you brought him up, he was 9-12 with a 4.56 ERA. That was their ace, so he got rocked last year. That's tough. Jordan Zimmerman, any idea how bad he did last year?
What happened to that guy? So I still remember the days. I'll be honest with you, man, I was really wanting the Yankees to sign him back in the day. There was a lot of talk about it. He had a really strong year with the Nationals, but, man, has he bombed with the Tigers. And, I remember last year he kind of started out at least mediocre, but I think as the year went on, the wheels fell off, if I'm not mistaken. And that's, he's been bad for a while.
Yeah.
But did he end up with an ERA over 6?
He was. Do you know what his record was? Do you know
No.
What was his record?
I have no idea. No clue.
How many wins do you think he got? Take a guess. He was a starter in this rotation.
8.
Not even close.
What?
I want you to keep guessing on this because you're not going to believe me.
4.
Not even close.
I have no idea. Is it the other way?
No, it's he had 1 win last year.
Oh my gosh.
He was 1-13 with a 6.91 ERA.
Wow.
David.
Hey, he cashed $1 million checks every week too. Big ones. I'm thinking he's making about $20 million a year. I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't research it, but it's a big contract.
He got 23 starts last year and won 1 ball game, David.
Wow.
Listen, the reason why this is such a big deal, I don't remember the exact year, but I know for a fact he led the league in wins one year with 19.
Mm.
And this is a guy who's gone from a 19-game winner who, like you said, you wanted to come join the Cubs or the Yankees, to a guy that has just absolutely fallen apart. And that's about as bad as it gets as far as single-season pitching performances that you see. But that's the Tigers from last year. They all struggled. Your ace didn't have a winning record, and he had close to a 4.6 ERA. I have little patience for pitching, David. Very little patience as a coach for bad pitching. I don't know how Gardenhire kept throwing him out there. I'm just being honest with you. We were talking a little bit about him. To
He obviously
me,
just had nothing else. I mean, right? You can't really. Again, he's making 20-some million dollars. So I guess you just run him out there with the hope that today he's going to find it. But I'm with you. Like I don't really understand it either. But uh, uh, we talked about this a little bit off air. How much of a role does Dave Dombrowski play into this whole thing? Let's talk about that for a minute. So Dombrowski is awesome at assembling World Series teams. He's done it multiple times. But when he leaves, it is a straight up dumpster fire. And look at the Red Sox this year. You know, of course, they still have some pieces, but they gave away Mookie Betts and David Price because their financial situation was so bad. So, you know, the Tigers won a World Series there a few years back. What do you think about Dave Dombrowski? How much of this does he have to own?
he has to. I mean, you're right about that. He's got to own up to this. Look at where this team is. They're in shambles. They're in absolute shambles. You know, the one good thing I guess I will say for them, and we're going to talk about this a little later, is they've got some guys that they're going to be able to start building around, which is a good thing because I believe in the guys that they've got to build around. But it's a mess, and it has to. You have to look up top when you're assembling teams, and you got to look at the guys who did it, and they've got to take blame for when the teams are in this position. So you're so right about that. I mean, Dave Dombrowski. I wonder how Tigers fans are feeling about him right now. I really do. I don't know what their overall thoughts are of him.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know, man.
so sad because Miguel Cabrera is of our generation an all-time great. You know, he's had his last few seasons have been kind of rough, but man, what a fun player to watch back in the day. You just hate to see him not only go out not playing well, but playing with a team that won 40-some games last year. I just hate it for him.
So, David, not to circle back around, you're so right about Cabrera, and I'm going to talk about him a little more too later. I have a really hard time. So we're talking about going back to Gardenhire and Zimmerman, okay? If Zimmerman, I don't know how you let a starting pitcher on your team get away with being that awful all year. How do you run a guy like that out there for 22 starts is beyond me. David, I kid you not. There is no way I'm letting Jordan Zimmerman start 22 games. I maybe give him 10 to 15 starts. I can see. But if you're not switching it up and trying somebody else, give somebody else a chance, send a message, you know? How do you get away with going 1-13 with a 7 ERA and still keep your job? I cannot stand when managers think, well, he's making such and such money. Because if the GM is getting pressure to the manager to play somebody because of money, I don't want a job like that. Let me just be honest with you. If my general manager is telling me who to play, then why am I managing? And I think a lot of these managers feel that pressure.
I think that goes on more than you think. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I think that's exactly what goes on. So I have been reading Joe Torre's book. I'm not very far into it, but not surprisingly, I guess, Steinbrenner was basically in his office after every game. And so, again, I think probably ownership's looking at Zimmerman, and it's like, well, we're paying this guy $22 million. We don't really have anybody we can bring up. Our guys aren't ready. We don't want to start the clock, so to speak, on any guys in AAA. Let's just see if we can find something that we can use this guy for to make it worth his money. And like I said, knowing Gardenhire, I would have considered him a good manager. I'm like you. I don't think he's going to sit there and be like, all right, run back out there. We know what's going to happen. Your ERA is almost 7. I think it had to have come from above. Hey, you're going to start this guy. We've got to get some value out of him. Maybe he can have a halfway decent season and we can trade him and get rid of some of this money. Because I'm with you. If you're trying to win ball games, which obviously wasn't the goal last year, there's no way you keep running him out there.
So I think that this is a problem in baseball. I really do. I don't feel that a manager should ever feel pressure from his bosses on who he puts out there every day in the lineup. I really don't believe in that. Why in the world did you hire them then? If you're gonna make the lineup card out too, then why have a manager? Why don't you come do it yourself too? Then if you're gonna be the one to go get this team, then you play who you want to play. You play the guys that you messed up on the contracts and stuck me with, and I got to run this guy out there every 5 days because you made a bad contract. Sorry, man. Um, I just don't get it. I don't care if he's an ego or not. Every major league player is an ego. Okay, they all are. Let's just be honest.
Mhm.
So what if I say you Zimmerman? Why don't you start pitching? Why don't you do your job? If you're not, too bad, man. Maybe I can get you some innings out in the bullpen because you don't deserve it anymore. And
Right.
that's what I really, really, really hate about this because this guy, come on, man. Come on, David. You can't tell me that they can't find somebody in that bullpen to just, try a few other guys in that spot. Those guys that are in the bullpen, most of those guys want to be starters. You know that. They don't want
Right.
to be in the bullpen. Maybe the closer does, and, maybe a guy that's your seventh and eighth inning guy if he likes that role. But other than that, man, those guys want to be starters. So pluck a couple of those guys in there and see what they got. I just don't. I could talk on that one for a while, I guess, on my soapbox here, but that to me, I agree, is from above and not a garden hire decision. That just baffled me when I saw his numbers and what he got away with last year.
Yeah.
I, I can't imagine being a Tigers fan and going, "Oh, Zimmerman's not pitching today. Why do I even want to tune in?" So,
No doubt.
uh,
Well, I'm gonna sit over here with bated breath. I can't wait to hear your response to this question. What is the Tigers' biggest strength for 2020?
okay, I had a really hard time with this. If this
Yes.
season would have been 162 games, my answer here would have made a little more sense. Since it's 60 games, it's going to be a little tougher to make sense for me, but it's the only thing I could really come up with. Okay, so to me, it's got to be Miguel Cabrera. And here's why. Okay, we obviously know he's on the downward spiral. He's not the same player he was. I watched him play last year, and when he hit the ball, it was just a miracle he can make it to first base. Yeah, he cannot run anymore. He can still hit. He's still a good player, not a great player, but he's still a good player. Um, but he's the face of the franchise. And we talk about this. If you're going to a Tigers game, who do you want to see more than anybody? I wanted to see Miguel Cabrera. I know he's at the end of his career, but when I went and watched the Tigers play, that's who I wanted to see. He's a name. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best right-handed hitters of all time. So here's what I'm getting at, though. Do you have any idea? He is in his 37 year. Okay, so he's 37 years old. 12 seasons with the Tigers already, which is crazy to believe. I still remember him coming up with the Marlins and just
Yeah.
raking and killing the Cubs. And I'm not gonna get back on 2003 Cubs again, but um, he had a great year last year. I mean, he was led the team in bombs, did pretty good. So, how many home runs do you think he's shy of 500?
I bet it's not very far. I'm gonna say he's 20 shy, maybe.
You're exactly right. He's 23 shy.
Wow.
Okay, and how many hits do you think he's shy of 3,000?
Again, I bet not very far. I'm gonna say he's 300 away.
He's 185 away.
Wow.
Now, in a 60 game season, you're going to have to get 3 hits a game to do that. That's not going to really realistically happen. Could he hit 23 home runs in 60 games? I think that's more realistic. You know, very hard to do, I think. I don't think he will do that. I think that would be kind of crazy if he did. But if you've got those two milestones hanging and you can bring in fans because of those, that's pretty good. It's a strength of this team is having a player like that going for something like that because those are legendary numbers. And to be honest with you, this is going to be one of the biggest things that Tigers fans have to look forward to. And I think that was taken away with the 162 game season getting moved down to 60. I think if it was a full season, he would probably get the homers possibly and come close to the hits. It would be something to watch though, and something to check out if you're a Tigers fan. So I'm going to go with that because really couldn't come up with too much. So what do you think?
Well, I can't disagree with you on that. I guess I never thought about that approach. As a Tigers fan, I'm ready to move on. So I'm gonna say the biggest strength is the prospects that they got coming on. They do have a few, and I know we're going to talk about that here in a minute. And so I'm looking to the future. They do have some interesting guys in their lineup. These guys are obviously placeholders. You know, Jonathan Scope, he's no joke at second. C.J. Cron is definitely capable of hitting you 30 homers a year. You know, they got Candelario from the Cubs, who was a good prospect at one point. He might make some noise. And so they've got a few players that could make it interesting. Maybe at the trade deadline they could get some guys for. But if I'm a Tiger fan, I'm looking past this year. I'm looking down the road. And I remember what this was like, believe it or not. The Yankees have been good for a long time, but I was also a Yankee fan in the late 80s and early 90s when Andy Hawkins and Chuck Carey were the rotation. And every game, man, it's just like I wish they'd call up so-and-so because at least it would be interesting. And so I feel the same way about the Tigers. They've got a pretty good farm system that we're going to talk about, and so I'm going to say that's the biggest strength that they have.
It's a good one. That'd be the other way I would go if I didn't go Miggy.
So we got to narrow this to just one. What's the biggest weakness that they have?
I have no idea.
Let's just stop. I want to ask this question. We have already looked at some bad teams. We got a couple more to look at. Knowing what you know, if you had to take between the Marlins, the Tigers, the Orioles, and the Pirates, which franchise are you taking, and which franchise do you consider last?
Man, that is a good one. That is a good one. So, wow.
Let me give you my answer.
Okay, I think I've got mine. Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
All right, I'm going to rank them. So I'm taking the Marlins first, and that's easy for me. After looking through their prospects, they're interesting. You can tell that the wave is coming. Marlins are going to be good in pretty short order. Second, I'm probably going to take the Tigers. Not based on what they have this year, but what they have coming as well. The poor Pirates and the Orioles, man, that would be 3 and 4. The Orioles have been mismanaged for so long, and it's so sad because they have an awesome ballpark and a good heritage, you know, with Cal Ripken and all that. But, yeah, I'm going to rank the Tigers the second best of the 4 worst teams in the majors.
Okay, so I'm going to agree with you. I think I'm going to flip-flop. I'm going to put the Orioles third, and I'm going to put the Pirates last if you believe that. The Marlins have got some prospects like we talked about. I think they've got more of a brighter future with, you know, Jeter trying to run the ship there. He's an ego who's going to want to do it right, so I think they're going to do some things there. It's not completely – the Tigers are not completely gone. Like we said, we're going to get into their prospects a little bit here in a little while, and they're a little intriguing. So it kind of gives you a little bit of hope for the Tigers, to be honest with you. I have zero hope for the Pirates
Right.
and the Orioles right now, and they are in a bad spot, both of those franchises, and realistically, obviously, so are the Marlins and the Tigers. But I think that's what I'd do is go Marlins, Tigers, Orioles, Pirates in that order.
Yeah. So let's talk about those prospects a little bit. Generally, the prospect rankings that I looked at rank them in the top 6 or 7 farm systems in baseball from what I saw. Tell us about what the Tigers got going on in that farm system.
So this is where the Tigers get good, okay? They have a lot of guys who are coming up in this pipeline that are going to be really good. Casey Mize is the number 1 pick in the draft, who is going to be up hopefully this year. Now, this is something I'm not 100%. Have you heard if he's coming up yet this year or not?
I have not. If I'm a Tiger fan, well, I'm probably wishing they would, but in a way I don't. You know, I can tell you as a pitcher, it's really discouraging to come out there and you know your team's going to hit 240, or maybe that they're not the best fielders in the world. And so if I'm managing bringing up Casey Mize, I'm not doing it unless we have a little bit of hope. I'd just rather hold him back and let him pitch at the minor league complex or whatever. That's just my personal opinion.
So I disagree. I really do. I think it's time. You have to do something. You have to give your franchise some hope. He's proven everything I think he needs to prove in the minor leagues already.
That's a good point, actually. I'm probably disagreeing with myself now as well.
He's legit. This guy was 29-17 with a 2.84 ERA in the minors. He had 455 Ks in 402 innings. That's outstanding. He has a 0.98 whip. He averages less than 1 runner on base per inning. 6.15 Ks per walk. That's outstanding control. Only 74 walks in 402 innings, David. That's unbelievable. First pick in the draft in 2018. In college, he had a 12-1 K to walk ratio. That's outstanding. He has a slider and a cutter that are just filthy. He throws a 2 and a 4 seam, throws a slurve and a splitter. This guy's nasty, and his repertoire is nasty. And that splitter is one of his better pitches, too. And as you know, man, you grip that splitter, you get that sideways, you make that come in like a fastball and just boop, dive off the table. And he's got it.
Let me devil's advocate you a little bit. Again, I'm partially agreeing with me and I'm partially agreeing with you. Again, believe it or not, I've been in this boat where you're just waiting for the next guy. But are you wasting bullets at this point? You're bringing him up in a 60-game season where you know you're going to suck. I don't know if you've ever tried to throw a splitter. That's hard on the arm, very hard. What if you bring up Casey Mize and he gets injured? How are you going to feel about it?
Okay, so I've thought about this too, and I really have. And so here's the unfortunate thing that I really believe about all pitchers. They're all going to blow their arms once in their career. Almost all these guys that are prospects that throw close to 100 miles an hour like he does, at some point it's going to go. It's unfortunate to say that, and I hope it does not happen to him. I'm not saying that at all by any means. But you cannot hold back on somebody's career because you're worried about them possibly getting hurt. Because most of these guys, it's going to happen once. And you're going to come back from it, and you're going to be there. I think it's time, man. I really do. I think it's time for him to come up and get 12 starts. And that's it, because they're not going anywhere close to the playoffs. Let's see what he's got. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can work on in the offseason. I mean, what else is the guy going to do? There's no minor league season this year, so I think that hurts him a little more as if he just sits on his butt all year and does nothing.
Well, they would still be doing stuff with him at the minor league camp. Yeah. It's just a tough decision, man. I don't know. I can tell you as a pitcher, especially your first taste of major league ball, it's hard to dial it back. You know, he's going to come out there and let it fly no matter what, whether fans are there or not, and he wants to prove something. And I don't know, man. I would really be on the fence. That would be a tough thing for me to do, is to bring him up basically with no hope, because the following year, all your prospects are some of your prospects are going to be landing. You'll have an off season to pick up some studs to put around him. I mean, you're completely wasting bullets. I mean, if there's only so many pitches in your arm, you're using up 12 starts of it for nothing. And that's kind of where I'm at. He could go to wherever their spring training facility is and pitch simulated games and keep in shape and work on some stuff and be tuned up and not feel like you would have wasted bullets on nothing. But again, I see your point. I see your side too. I really do. The Tiger fans have got to have something to look forward to in 2021. Very tough.
So he's the real deal, as we know. Like this is going to be your number one starter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's no doubt. Michael Fulmer's a good pitcher, but he's not better than Casey Mize. Mize in camp, I don't know if you've been hearing. He struck out Cabrera yesterday or today on 3 pitches and made him look sick. And this is, like I said, one of the best hitters of all time. Like I said, I know he's getting older and it's getting a little easier to strike him out. But Cabrera's super impressed with him. And if a Hall of Famer's talking you up, you're probably pretty legit. And so to me, man, it really is a no-brainer. I got to bring him up. I got to see what he's got. I mean, I get what you're saying. I really do. But if you're making him the number 1 pick overall, what's holding him back? And another guy too, David, I'm gonna throw this one at you too. So they just drafted Spencer Torkelson with the first pick in the draft and made him the biggest, most expensive paid prospect ever in the history of the game. Bring him up.
I read something that said that's a possibility.
Bring him up too. Bring up Mize. Bring up Torkelson. Their first round pick from last year, Riley Green. Bring him up. I'm throwing all these guys out there. I really am. I don't understand why you would wait on these guys.
See, I agree with that philosophy way more than what the Tigers look like they're going to do, which is plug has-beens in holes. And that's exactly what I'm saying with Mize. You know, I would rather bring him up with a whole bunch of prospects and let this be their AAA season and just figure it out than I would to bring Mize up with a bunch of aging veterans, you know, with no hope. I'd rather just leave him down if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Spencer Torkelson is the real deal too. This guy's getting that money for a reason, okay? He's legit. And I just he's out of Arizona State. I don't know why you would wait on him either. So, David, I got a question for you too. So I'd be interested to hear this. I think I know your answer, but say that you're coming out of high school, which you obviously did, and you get, instead of going to Tennessee Temple, which is obviously where we went, where would have been the number 1 college that you would have gone to if it wasn't Tennessee Temple, obviously, anywhere in the nation that you would have wanted to play?
I'm going to be honest with you, just real honest. I didn't follow college baseball that much growing up, like at all, really. And so I wouldn't have a good opinion on that, just to be honest with you. Where would you go? Arizona State?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot of good players going
there. I would have died to play there, no doubt, man. That just to me is it. You go out to that warm temperature and get to play in that all year long, and I think that would have been the ultimate to get to play out there and at that. We went out to vacation there, and I got to see the field before they went to the new one that they got now. That was really cool. I ran around center field like I was a little kid, and but no, I would have thought you would have said West Virginia, man. You would have wanted to play for the Mountaineers there.
No, not very many good draft picks come from West Virginia. Yeah. Now there's been a couple recently, but no. Honestly, first thing that popped in my mind was North Carolina, only because a lot of good pitchers have come through there over the years. And so but yeah, like I said, I've never been a big follower of college baseball.
I got you. I understand that. And yeah, getting back to what we were talking about, I really do like, um, I really believe that these guys should call these guys up. Give Tiger fans something to watch. Everybody misses baseball, and you got to pull these guys up and just plug them in somewhere and see what they got. So
Yeah. So what's the best case scenario for the Tigers this year?
it's got to be what we just talked about. It really does. That they bring these guys up and we get to see them. They're going to finish last. It's going to happen. There's no way they pass any of those four teams. I'd love to see them pass the White Sox and make the White Sox a team in the cellar, which is why I had this hat, by the way, is because I'm a big fan 20 times a year or 10 this year when they play the White Sox. So I like to put this on for Nicole when White Sox games are on against the Tigers and rub it in a little bit. And no, but they're not going to finish out of the cellar.
Right.
So best case scenario is they get some fans in there by watching Miggy running around trying to chase some milestones. You got Mize coming up, Torkelson. That's some fun stuff, man. That really is. Spencer Torkelson's going to be either the third baseman or the first baseman of the future, and this guy is a stud. And when you've got a face of the franchise, David, one offensive guy, one defensive guy, I'm giving these guys major they already did Spencer, but I'm
Mhm.
loading these guys up for years with whatever they want right now, and I'm building around those two. And if those are your two guys, your best hitter and your best pitcher, you work your way from there. To me, that's their best case scenario.
Tigers' future is bright. It's just rough right now, but we've seen a lot of teams go through this where they just tear it down and start all over. So I agree with you. I mean, it would be really great. I'm sure Tiger fans, Tiger front office is hoping that some of these veterans that they signed go off. They can trade them off, get more prospects. We've seen teams do that, and it would be fun. Watching Miggy chase 500. So that would be cool. Chances are that's probably going to be first part of next year, so it'll give them something to look forward to. What's worst case scenario?
Yeah, so this one I can actually talk about. Riley Green, Torkelson, Casey Mize. That's pretty much all that. If they come up and there's still no fans, and these guys finish last again, I really, I'm talking about fans like we're actually going to have them, and we don't know, obviously. Might not even. But I'm just trying to talk without all that garbage going on or whatever. But, I think the worst case scenario is that they don't bring those guys up and they just go through the motions like they did last year. And in a 60-game season, man, at a 30% win pace, whew, you are
Rough.
in some trouble, man. And you're going to win maybe, what is that, like 18 games and 18 and 42 or something like that. Ouch.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what they're looking at based off of their percentages of last year. And so if they struggle like that again, and they don't see too much out of some prospects, and we see rotations again and all these positions, they're not really taking a step forward at all. And that's kind of what you want to do in this short season is give them at least something to hope for in the future.
Yeah. So DJ, you're up there close. Tell us about the Tiger stadiums. So I know we had Old Tiger Stadium. To be honest with you, that's one I used to love. I thought it was really cool the way the outfield was. I've always liked to watch home runs. Obviously, every baseball player does, but their upper deck was kind of right there on the field, so to speak. And so now they have, is it Comerica? Is that right?
Yep.
And it looks like a cool park. So tell us about them. I know you've been at least to one. Have you been to both?
So Tiger Stadium's a no for me. I did not go to that. That one closed in '99. Like you said, that would have been a fun one to go to. Some of the things I remember about Tiger Stadium is Reggie Jackson hitting on the roof of the outfield bleachers out there. You know, just pretty memorable ballpark as far as all that stuff goes. Comerica Park, I have been to. That was what we did last year. We had just had Hannah, so we were kind of, strapped a little bit as far as wanting to go too far and do too much with having a baby like that. But we did sneak up to Detroit. We we did this, David. This just shows you how much a trooper Nicole is, and my family and everything, and how crazy I guess we are. But we woke up at maybe 5 o'clock in the morning, drove all the way to Detroit, went to a game, caught some food, and drove all the way back to Chicago
Wow.
the same day.
Wow.
And that was last year. And no, I liked it. I really did. I think they've done a really good job. David, you would be amazed how close the Lions field is to the Tigers Stadium. It's right there. Like, I mean, you're almost like, wow, this is a little too close. It's crazy. They've got a lot of statues, tributes to the players that have come through there. Al Kaline, being, Mr. Tiger, and Ty Cobb, and a lot of cool statues that they have. I got a lot of pictures of. We sat down the third baseline on that one. That was a lot of fun. Or no, I'm sorry, we sat in the right field bleachers. We always sit in the bleachers, I think, for some reason. But we were down the right field bleachers. Pretty good spot there. Had a good time. They like I said, they have a nice field. One of the things that kind of stood out to me, though, David, is I wondered why Nick Castellanos, when he came to the Cubs, was just an absolute doubles machine. And I was like, how's this guy leading the league in doubles? Well, you look at their dimensions when you get to their field and you see why. It's 420 feet to dead center.
Yeah.
420. And this is something with Torkelson. Torkelson came up, he's been in the camp with these guys, and he's looking out there going, I got to mash 425 just to get it out of the park,
Why would any team do that? I don't understand. I'm a pitcher, okay? So if anybody should want a big ballpark, it would be a guy like me. But I've never understood that. Home runs are fun. Scoring runs are fun. 1-0 games are generally not fun to watch. They have fun moments, but they're kind of boring. So I don't understand why the Tigers or any team would build a stadium like that. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I could not believe it. I had heard that, but when you actually look at how deep that is and you're seeing it in person, man, you're like, this is absolutely crazy. And you understand why Castellanos hit so many doubles and not bombs, which he got to Wrigley and started hitting homers because it's a little more hitter friendly. But you got to do something about that. I mean, if you're going to start getting some guys, who wants to come and hit there, David? How are you going to draw in offensive free agents this way when you got 420 feet that you're hitting to 81 times a year?
It's the same way with like the Rockies. Like, what pitcher would want to go to Colorado? There's no way I would go to Colorado. I'd rather pitch in AAA for somebody else, and hope I could get called up, because look at all the places that's ruined their career, just ruined it.
Yeah, you're right.
So if I'm a hitter, I'm not wanting to go to Detroit. That's for sure. So.
Well, I did love it. That's not a far one from you, is it? Not too bad to get to Detroit.
I think Detroit is about 8 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
That's doable to drive there.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do that one of these days.
I liked it. I really did. I just I checked that one off the list. We didn't really have too good of a feel for how the city of Detroit was going to be. We kind of thought it was going to be a lot worse than it really was. It was pretty cool, actually. I'd never been there, and it's not that bad of a city, and we kind of, didn't hang out very long, but, we got to see that, and I definitely recommend it. It was a good one.
I hear you. DJ, I'm going to ask you something that's close to your heart. Give me the 1-minute version of why Lou Whitaker should be in the Hall of Fame.
How many more seconds do I got? Because I'm not going to tell you anything.
Come on, let's hear it. Me and DJ have had this argument. He was a big Alan Trammell guy. So let's hear it. Why should Lou Whitaker be in the Hall of Fame?
Nope. Can't do it.
What?
Can't do it.
Come on, man.
Cannot do it.
You're saying he's out?
I'm saying he's out.
Now, wait a minute. I vividly remember you arguing the case for Lou Whitaker not that long ago, about the time you were arguing for Alan Trammell. Come on, man.
I said he's got a case. I said he should have got a better look than he did.
So give me the case. What's the case?
I mean, his numbers are up there for a second baseman. He's not terrible. Can you pull them up a minute? Pull up Lou Whitaker's. I want to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to grab something real quick while you're pulling that up.
Okay.
So I just wanted to show everybody this. I've got Alan Trammell's autograph, which this guy's a Hall of Famer. I also have a baseball of him over there somewhere. This is back when he just was a coach for the Cubs. But this guy's legit Hall of Famer. He's better than Ozzie Smith. I'll fight you to the end on that one.
I'll be right with you on that one, actually.
In the 80s growing up, we did, David. This is a better shortstop than Ozzie. But anyway.
So here's why I asked you that question. Lou Whitaker does have a Hall of Fame case. I busted on you pretty hard on that one when it first came up and we were arguing around about it. But Lou Whitaker does have a Hall of Fame case. So if you're a fan of sabermetrics, 75 WAR. They say the baseline is 60 for a Hall of Famer. He's at 75. 244 homers, 2,300 hits. I think he's on the outside looking in. But if you think about second baseman of the 80s, and I guess in his case, early 90s, you can only think of one or two that are better than him. And so while I don't think he's in, I think he definitely has a case. Definitely.
I mean, I give you that. I really do. I think he's close, but no cigar kind of guy. You know, he just barely, like I said, if you're a second baseman, you know, you got to have some numbers that kind of pop out to you. You know, he's close. I think we kind of, you know.
We've talked about this a little bit. Second base is one of those positions. Now, it's become an offensive position. Yeah. But in days past, it was not at all. Second base is where you put the little guy who's hitting about 275. It's got like 3 homers but plays good defense. That's what the second base used to be. Guys like Chase Utley, Jose Altuve have made that an offensive position. And so Lou Whitaker was a little bit ahead of his time. So on Baseball Reference, Hall of Fame, they have a category called Hall of Fame Statistics. And they rate him as the 13th best all-time second baseman. It's pretty stout. So anyway, I just had to bring that up.
So Chase Utley's number 12 and he's number 13. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So we just talked about Utley being he's at number 12 you brought up, and that Whitaker's 13. You know, here's the thing, David. This is what kind of makes me think a little bit more about this. Lou Whitaker's defense was outstanding. He's a Hall of Fame defensive second baseman, no doubt. But if you can tell me that somebody is in the top 20 all time at their position in this game, I mean, how do you leave guys out like that? You know, if they're a top 20 player all time at a position.
We've talked about this. You know, the NFL takes a lot different position than MLB. And so my problem with guys like Lou Whitaker has always been, well, if this guy's in, then this guy's got to be in. And we know that doesn't happen. A lot of times in MLB, the Hall of Fame is a popularity contest. It's voted on by sports writers who get cozy with players and so on and so forth. And so a lot of times guys that should be in don't get in. And, you know, we've talked about a lot of guys who have Hall of Fame statistics, especially when compared to Lou Whitaker, that could be in. But I think Lou's on the outside looking in. If you want to start letting guys in like Don Mattingly, then I think Lou Whitaker should be in. Bernie Williams, you know, of course, I'm a total Yankee homer. So if you look at these guys, you know, they had underrated careers because they were surrounded by great players. But when you take Lou Whitaker for what he is, a second baseman, and usually a non-offensive position, he has a case. I wouldn't put him in. I would, just like I wouldn't put Chase Utley in, but he has a compelling case to be in. Definitely a better second baseman than Bill Mazeroski, for sure.
I was going to say that. You're right about that.
Yeah. So anyway, he was an overlooked, very solid player for sure.
So, David, one of your guys that you always bring up in this Hall of Fame case that was a Yankee is Bernie Williams. And to be honest with you, the guy that I bring up for the Cubs that is a lot like Bernie Williams for you is Mark Grace. I mean, man, you got to kind of think a little bit about Mark Grace here. Now, there's not a single player in the game that had more hits than in the 1990s decade than Mark Grace. For a 10-year span, he had more hits than anybody in the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. That's a 10-year run that was better than anybody as far as hits goes. He was a big part of that 2001 World Series title with the Diamondbacks. He had some huge hits.
I love Mark Grace.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question. Was he better than Fred McGriff?
Oh.
So if Fred McGriff's not in, how am I going to put Mark Grace in? And then, it's the same argument. I don't think Bernie Williams is a Hall of Famer. Do I think he should have been dismissed after the first ballot? First time he was on it? Heck no. He had a great career. He just didn't have a long career. He only played 15 years. Mark Grace, 15 years. And so a lot of their problem with the Hall of Fame cases, they didn't accumulate big statistics. But, man, they had great careers. But until you start letting guys like Fred McGriff in, I can't even consider Mark Grace. I can't even consider Don Mattingly. Will Clark. Have you ever looked at Will Clark's stats? Will Clark was a stud. But again, you can't even consider guys like that if you're not going to let a guy like Fred McGriff few homers away from 500. If you're not going to let him in, it's hard to consider these other guys. I do wish, to be honest with you, that it was more like the NFL. But I'm drawing a hard line. You got to start letting some other guys in first before I can consider Mark Grace. But I'll tell you a funny story about Mark Grace. I used to be big into baseball cards, huge into baseball cards. But I really didn't know what I had and all that kind of stuff. I traded a Ken Griffey, I think it was a rookie card, because I had doubles of it, for a Mark Grace rookie card. So I was an idiot.
Oh, my goodness. That Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. card was like the one that everybody wanted, that rookie card.
Yeah, mine was a Don Russ. And like I said, in my defense, I had doubles of it. So I set out at this card show saying, okay, people are going to think this is gold. I'm going to trade. So it was Mark Grace, and it was another card that was completely worthless. I don't remember who it was, but anyway, I did that.
That's terrible. So going back to Whitaker real quick, and we'll get off this subject. I know we kind of got away from the Tigers a little bit, but going back to the Tigers and Whitaker, what we were just saying, I don't know if we just mentioned this recently on another podcast, but if you're not letting Jeff Kent in, you can't even come close to letting Lou Whitaker in. And Jeff Kent is statistically one of the better second basemen of all time, and baffles me that he's not even close. So if you can't put Jeff Kent in, you can't put Lou Whitaker. And Lou Whitaker is by far a better defender than Jeff Kent was. Jeff Kent was pretty bad at second, actually, but Jeff Kent was a way better hitter than Lou Whitaker. So it's tough, man. It really is. And Sweet Lou, man, that was one of the guys. He was a big part of that Tigers team when we were growing up as kids, and definitely one of the faces that you think of when you think Detroit Tigers baseball.
Definitely a stud on RBI baseball as well. Throw that out there.
Could run too.
So DJ, who is your all-time favorite Detroit Tiger?
All right, so I've been waiting for this one. And we talked about the Dodgers. I had to go with Kershaw on that one by far. But one of the guys that you always think of as a Dodger, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the Dodgers, but they're like my second team, is Kirk Gibson and what he did in the '88 World Series for the Dodgers. And what Kirk Gibson did in the '84 World Series for the Tigers is legendary. This guy, man, and this is my favorite Tiger of all time. I just clutch after clutch after clutch. And you talk about he's not even close to a Hall of Famer either, but I'll take him on my team any day, man. Somebody's going to come out there with a broken leg pretty much and play the game and hit the ball. And
Yeah.
I got to see that game. They replayed the '84 World Series on MLB Network, and I watched through it. And it is so funny. And you Tigers fans obviously know this situation. Goose Gossage is pitching. Dick Williams comes out there and says, we got a base. Let's walk Gibson. Let's not let him hit. And Goose Gossage talks Williams out of it. And sure enough, man, the biggest mistake of Dick Williams' career, listening to his pitcher, and Gibson makes him pay. And the Tigers win the '84 World Series. And Sparky Anderson's in the dugout going, ha, he pitched to you, are you crazy? And it's just legendary and really funny. So I'm going to go with Gibson.
Well, I was going to throw in there, what a lot of people don't realize about Kirk Gibson is he was a great athlete. I think, and he played tight end at either Michigan or Michigan State. I don't remember which. I want to say it was Michigan State. He doesn't look like much of an athlete. He's kind of scrubby looking, but he was a phenomenal athlete. And so, yeah, I'm a big Kirk Gibson fan as well. My favorite all-time Tiger, Chet Lemon.
Ooh,
just kidding. I definitely had a card with his huge afro or whatever. Little Chet Lemon. I just wanted to throw that out there to be funny, but actually, I have to say I'm a pretty big Verlander fan. When he came up throwing those BBs 100 miles an hour, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a gamer. He's won some big games. He's married to Kate Upton. That's always a plus. Can't beat that. So my favorite all-time Tiger has got to be Justin Verlander.
Allison's not going to listen anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah, I can throw that out there. It's okay. I've told her that before, actually, how not fair it is.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. Okay, so I want to reiterate a couple guys here. I love Alan Trammell. I'm a big fan of his too. Miguel Cabrera is one of the Tigers you gotta love. I love Brandon Hinge too. Remember him, the old catcher?
Yeah.
I loved watching him play. Mickey Tettleton comes to mind. Who didn't do his stance in the backyard either? He had a weird, crazy stance. Somehow hit that way. I have no clue how he did that. Ty Cobb. I mean, So this guy, man, you want to talk about letting guys into the Hall of Fame? There's something in there about integrity when you have to go into the Hall of Fame. This guy was a murderer.
One of the worst people probably in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's documented. He was a jerk.
Would sharpen his cleats and cut you to death. This guy was mean, man. No integrity whatsoever. Just an awful human being. And you shoo him in.
Yeah.
So they don't follow any of the guidelines for the Hall of Fame or anything like that. If you want to go, and Pete Rose is a way better human being than Ty Cobb ever was. And those are the two guys that are up there with the career hits and everything. So I don't know that, you think of Al Kaline, who's just recently passed away, who is the face of the franchise besides Cobb, Mr. Tiger. And I want to give one more shout out to Preston Larison. Have you ever heard of Preston Larison, David?
Nope.
So Preston actually is a friend of mine, and he went to West Aurora High School here in Illinois. And he came up with the Tigers for a long time. He was one of their top prospects. He actually pitched in the Futures game. He was a starter when the Futures game was at Comiskey Park when we just graduated from high school. And he graduated high school around the same time that I did. He was one of the best pitchers in our area by far. West Aurora had another player that year too who ended up going in the Boston organization. They were absolutely loaded. And he's my pitching coach on my 2014 state team. I got third, and he was just an outstanding coach. Still is coaching at West Aurora High School now. Unfortunately, I lost him back to there because he was working there. But he came up with Verlander, and Verlander and him were some of their top prospects. And Preston didn't make it all the way; he made it to AAA. And Jim Leland actually had a choice between him and another pitcher, and he chose the other pitcher. Unfortunately, that would have been his shot to finally make it. He would have got his first start in there. But definitely want to give a little love to Preston. When you think of him, he's a Tiger, and that's my guy, so I want to give him a little love.
I hear you. Oh, that's an awesome story, man. It goes to show you how close, and how hard it is to get to the show, man. It takes a lot more than people understand. You've got to be good. You've got to be at the right place at the right time. The right person has to see you. They've got to have a need for you on that team. It's very hard to get up there. Even those AAA guys, man, some of them are deserving, could play on a lot of other teams, but just are in the wrong situation. So that's a cool story. So we've spent close to an hour on the Tigers, DJ. You got me some trivia?
I sure do.
Oh, yeah.
So this is legit baseball trivia, and you're never going to get the answer.
Don't underestimate
me. All right, so we know who the career home run leader is. We know who the career hit leader is. David, I ask you this because he's a former Tiger, and I'll even give you that. Who is the all-time leader in career triples?
Well, what era did he play in? I just have to ask. And like if it's somebody from the 40s, I'll never get it.
It's old before that.
Before that? Oh, it's Ty Cobb.
Nope.
Well, I don't have any idea then.
That's a good guess. But isn't it crazy that I guarantee you maybe 9 out of 10 baseball fans can't give you the all-time leader in triples, which is a major category, major stat.
Right.
Sam Crawford.
I don't even know who that is. But honestly, like you said, man, triples, that's a big deal. It's very hard to get a triple. So I never really thought about it that way.
Oh my goodness. That's so
Sam
funny.
Crawford. I learned something today.
David, I'm going to give you one more as a bonus.
Okay.
Who's the career leader in doubles?
Lou Whitaker.
It's not a Tiger, though, so.
It's not a Tiger?
No, I'm just bringing it up because nobody knows this one either. And it's kind of crazy because doubles.
What era?
Golden era, too. So we know Pete Rose is the all-time leader in hits and singles.
Yeah.
Sam Crawford is triples. Barry Bonds, home runs. Who's got doubles, David?
Joe DiMaggio.
Tris Speaker.
Wow, that's way back there.
So you gotta get those, man. You gotta start betting that into your brain because that's career doubles and triples leader. You gotta know those guys, man. Those are big stats.
I hear you. Good deal. Well, you got anything else you want to add for tonight's show for the Tiger?
You don't got one for me?
No, I actually forgot. I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? I do remember what it was. I told you I had some notes. Who is I think I'm saying this right. What Tigers pitcher set the record for most wins in a season?
Oh, Denny McLain.
That's right. Yep. 31, I think, in 1969, if I'm not mistaken. I had written that down, but anyway.
Birdman was his nickname, I believe. They did a special on him, too.
That's the Mark the Bird Fidrich.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yep. That's it. That's a great documentary, actually. I enjoyed watching that.
Yeah, 31 wins in this season. Holy smokes.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, no doubt.
Woo, you are running. Jordan Zimmerman might be a little jealous of that win total.
He might have the most losses in a season. He's way up there. Anthony Young, he's up there. You remember that season he lost that was most in a row. Remember that he lost 18 starts in a row or something?
With the Mets, right?
Yeah. He ended up being a Cub later.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Ooh, man, Anthony Young. I haven't heard that name in forever with good reason because I when he was on the mound, I'm like, really? Get this guy out of here, man. Cubs, get out of here. Come on. You got to do something better than this.
That's funny. Well, I guess with that, this wraps up another episode of Frenemies. We plan on doing the Brewers next, I believe. So you'll want to tune into that. Another interesting team. So I guess, DJ, you got anything else?
I got one more thing. So before we sign off here, we do not have any teammates that were Tigers fans. However, I do want to give – what's that?
That's kind of surprising, actually.
A little bit.
Yeah. They were a popular team back in the day, so I'm just kind of surprised.
Yep, not a one, unless it's Donnie. We're going to keep calling you out, Donnie. No, but my assistant coach on my varsity squad right now, I'm going to give him a little love. Joe Meisner, he might be our one view for the Tigers here. So I'm going to give him a little love. Joe Meisner, man, that's my guy. I love that guy. He's my assistant coach. He grew up in Detroit. And when I went to Detroit last year, he helped me out with a lot of things going on as far as Comerica Park goes and what to check out and what to look at. And, every time I have anything that pops up with the Tigers, I'm always texting him, hey, what do you think of this? Check out the 84 World Series and MLB Network. Big Tigers fan. Only one I know. I mean, I don't know anybody else besides him that's a Tigers fan. I don't have anybody in my life that likes the Tigers. So just want to give him a little love, and that's about it, man. If we manage to talk about the Tigers for an hour, at least maybe he'll listen.
That's funny. Well, maybe they'll surprise us, DJ. This might be the year they're going to jump out to a big lead and get in the play. Nah, not happening. Never mind.
No.
All right. Well, it's 1:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so it's time to get to bed. So I hope you guys have all enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Hold on. Frozen.